This is the start of our very final unit for AP Calc. This is our Unit 10, the AP Curriculum's Unit 8. So in this set of videos, we're going to look at 3 different applications of integrals. So the first one we're going to look at is the average value of a function. So if you scored these 3 scores on 3 different tests, how would you find the average? To find an average of something, you add up the numbers and you divide by the total number of things you added. So if you did this, 91 plus 88 plus 94, you get 273 divided by 3, and you get that your average is a 91. Right, your average score is a 91%, and that kind of levels off all the other ups and downs. So it's also helpful to know the average value of a function from A to B, but how do we add up all this stuff? So the idea of an average is still going to be the same. You add up all the stuff and divide by the amount of stuff you have. But how are you going to do this? We're going to do this by having this equation. All right, so adding up all the stuff, adding up all the values of a function is taking the integral, right? You're taking all these values and summing them up. That's what the integral is. And we divide that by how much stuff we have. How much stuff do we have? Well, we're going from A to B. We have the distance from A to B. All right, so we're still adding up everything and dividing by the amount of stuff we have. So if you can relate it to just the normal average, it's the same, but we're just doing it in calculus terms. All right, so we're going to find the average value of sine from 0 to pi. So the average value is going to be 1 over pi minus 0, the integral from 0 to pi of sine of x dx. All right, so just using our formula, we take the integral over that period and divide it by the length of that interval. And this is obviously going to simplify to 1 over pi. On the right part, we take the antiderivative of sine as negative cosine. And then we have to evaluate it from 0 to pi. Right, so this part I'm just going to do to the side. So I plug in the top value first. So I plug in pi, negative cosine of pi. Then I subtract when I plug in the bottom value, cosine of 0. So cosine of pi, if I'm going to the left, that's the pi value is negative 1. Cosine of 0 is positive 1, so this is positive 1 plus 1 is 2. So all of this equals 2. My final answer is 2 over pi. So the average value of sine on this region is 2 divided by pi. All right, so the next example, same thing, finding the average value of a function on an interval. Our formula is the distance we cover and the integral of that distance. Obviously that fraction turns into 1/2. And the integral of 1/3, first I have to take the antiderivative 1 over x squared. I remember 1 over x squared is the same as x to the negative 2. So I take its antiderivative, I'm going to get x to the negative 1 over negative 1. I'm going to evaluate that from 1 to 3. And I'm going to do that to the side. First I plug in 3, so it's going to be negative 1 over 3 minus negative 1 over 1. And that's going to be negative 1 over 3 plus 3 over 3, which is 2 over 3. So that integral is 2/3. The 2's cancel, and my final answer is 1/3. So the average value of 1 over x squared from 1 to 3 is 1/3. All right, so this whole video is just using that one formula, so go ahead and try this one on your own. Find the average value of x squared from 2 to 4. The answer that you get is 28 over 3. So again, just following that formula, taking your antiderivative correctly. Remember, when you figure out this value of this integral, you plug in the top value first, subtract when you plug in the bottom value, and simplify. All right, so when you plug that all in, remember, don't forget the dividing part as well. Your final answer is 28 over